What's going on, guys? My name is Pickled and welcome back to a brand new video. Today I'm doing a Sony Vegas tutorial to get the best possible render settings for your video at 1080p. Alright, so I've already picked out a 5-second segment of my yesterday's video, the Fallout 3 Completionist series that I'm starting. I have a bunch of notes written down. I've done every possible research I can. I have watched multiple videos in the last few days, as well as over the last about 3 years that I've actually been using Sony Vegas. All this is coming from personal experience, others' experience, basically accidents, stuff like that. The idea is you want to get the best possible render settings, best possible quality for your video, but not at the cost of, you don't want a large file size. Nobody ever says they want 7 gig file. If you are rendering with programs like Bandicam or hell, I don't know. I mean, I normally record with Bandicam. Bandicam is a very professional recording software for desktop. It can record very high quality at very high frames per second. The codec I use from my GPU on Bandicam is H.264 NVENC, the GPU's native encoder codec. I set it to 80% quality, full size, 1080p obviously. Microphone recording at 48 kilohertz, which is, you know, pretty much obvious for any higher end microphone. Then 192 kilobits per second, which is basically the highest you really need to go for any even high-end microphones. I actually have some notes written down here going audio bitrate. 128 is pretty much the lowest you need to go. It's not low end, but it is lower end. It's going to be compressing your audio to get quite a small file size, but there will be more of a kind of quality loss from your microphone. High end, any really good microphone, any professional microphone, XLR microphones, Yeti, even USB microphones like that from Blue or whatever you use, 192 is all you're ever gonna need unless you're like working in a studio. And this video is not directed towards anybody working in a studio. All you guys have much more information and knowledge about this stuff than me, but I have come to understand that 192 is all you need for a low file size, but it keeps exactly that same crisp sound that comes out of your microphone, goes through your amplifier, or, you know, straight into your desktop PC or whatever you're using to better a desktop PC, because your sound card is better, obviously. 160 though is a mid-ground if you do want to shave off maybe, you know, depends on your file size. Maybe if it's like 20 gigs, it could shave off like an extra gig or two on the end, besides, you know, the video compression. 192, basically max you're gonna want for your audio. So we're gonna go into the audio. We have it set at 48,000 kilohertz, 48 kilohertz, sorry. 48 kilohertz or 48,000 hertz. 16-bit depth for your audio. You obviously want to keep it at best. Want it left at 48 kilohertz if you have recorded at 48. If you're gonna record at 44 kilohertz or 32 kilohertz and you're gonna boost that up to 48, you're basically polishing a turd, and that doesn't help at all. Anyways, guys, 48 kilohertz, that's what my mic records at best. You want to keep it at that. Your video, my video, as I have come to know, the video I recorded last night, Bandicam records for me at no field order progressive scan. It just records pop going over, you know, just continuous chunk loading, like a Cinema 4D renders or whatever. That's progressive scan. 1920 by 1080, that's full HD. We have it set 30 FPS because this is a game video, and I will actually get to that. We have notes. I have a table actually written up about what FPS you want to do in certain videos, what pixel format, like 8-bit or 32-bit full range. The deinterlace method, we will just get on that in another video. This actually has nothing to do with the interlace method. So if you do have problems with homing in your video, or, you know, like a shutter effect in your video, all has to do with the interlace method. We're not going to deal with the interlace method until I can get a video about that. Resample, you always want to disable resample, because the thing about resample, blends frames together. I hate that. It's really annoying. It lowers the quality of the video tremendously, and I don't know why it's even a thing. I think it's just for lowering the crap out of file size, but that's about it. So you want to disable resample, not a good option if you're looking for highest quality. Anyways, getting on past this 8-bit, you know, all this, these are the settings for my gaming video. Now, I actually accidentally rendered it at double NTSC 60 frames, and because it's a gaming video, that took 3 hours. Well, actually no, it was like 3.5 hours to render, and then it took an extra hour. Actually, this was rendering with the native H.264 codec that YouTube uses. It did take an extra hour and a half to upload to YouTube, minus processing because of the native H.264 codec. So anyways, let's actually get on the fact that YouTube does use a native H.264 codec, or H.264 is YouTube's native codec, not, you know, a specific type of H.264. There's no such thing. But H.264 basically means you're just uploading the video. It doesn't have to compress it a whole crap ton. It's already pretty much compressed. I'm not sure if it really, you know, compresses it at all with the native H.264, because I've never had it actually process a video that I've done or that I've rendered in H.264, but if you do find it processing your video after it's uploaded and you've rendered it in H.264, then leave a comment and I will definitely figure out why, and I will get back to you on that. But anyways, so I actually have a list here. I know.
All about the list, right?
The idea of the list is types of videos and what settings you need, or what settings are the best preferred method for those videos. So if you're gonna do something like a showcase or a vlog or a film, 15 to 16 megabit per second, because I'm that type of guy. 15 to 16 megabyte per second is, you know, 15 to 16,000 kilobits per second, or otherwise 15 million or 16 million bits per second. You know, some programs like to differentiate the translation for some reason. That will pull the absolute most quality into your render. So if you want to get the best render quality but not kill the size of your video, 16 is about the best you want to go. I don't even think 16, probably 15 million bits, or otherwise 15 megabit. That's the best probably want to go. 15 or 16. I don't think you should have to go higher, but that's for showcases, vlogs, and film. Otherwise, the frames per second for those showcases, vlogs, and films would have to be 60 frames per second. Some people like to slow down their videos a lot in vlogs. You know, they decelerate the video, they do a slow-mo of the sky or something, or pretty lights or something. 60 FPS would be the best to do that, and that's about it. Otherwise, films or movies, there is actually a reason they film at 24 FPS, because it brings in like a certain quality of motion blur that anything higher, like even 30 frames or 60 frames or anything lower than that, would not allow it. It's like a dreamland kind of thing. People say 24 frames, and I've tested it. It actually is true. 24 frames brings you that, kind of dims the quality. It softens everything, so it looks kind of like a fantasy kind of thing. Something like The Day After Tomorrow or something. That would be recorded in 24 frames because there's so much fantasy to that movie. They need to make it kind of like dreamlike. It can't seem real. Otherwise, it's just going to be like watching stage play. It's like watching people walk around in costumes, and it would make all the makeup seem fake. 24 frames, it softens up the quality, so it's kind of like everything could be a little bit more, could seem more real rather than walking around in a game. Games and commentary, that kind of stuff, the quality, you can still maintain the quality. This still gets you the highest possible quality for your gaming or commentary, but it's not pulling out every last pixel that you could possibly get, every last lens flare from the 15 to 16 megabits per second, which is really only recommended if you're doing something like 4K or something. But if you're going to be doing gaming or commentary, stick to 8 megabits per second. 8 or 10. 8 or 10. 10 is basically if you really want to stretch the quality, just like the showcases, vlogs. If you really are obsessed with that kind of thing, like I am, I always stick, you know, any of my videos, I'll go up to 15 megabits per second. Most of my vlogs or showcases or whatever go up to 16 megabits per second, but my games, I just recently started doing at 15. Guarantee you, YouTube's data rate, the max data rate that or the max bitrate that a YouTube video needs to be to get the highest possible quality, you know, besides the 4K look in a 1080p rendering. 8 megabits. Otherwise 10 megabits if you know, want to put a little tiny bit flair into your game. I mean, it really doesn't matter at that point. It's just a game. That's not putting down 8 megabits per second, because 8 megabits per second is actually the highest quality that YouTube can actually understand. 15 to 16 is basically just going into 4K territory for a 1080p video. It's like, basically if you put an elephant in a T-Rex's cage. I'm not really sure. Gaming commentary, you want to stick it to 30 frames per second, NTSC, 30 frames. That makes sure that it's still very smooth. If you're going to be doing like an hour gaming session or something, whatever you do, 30 frames. Unless like a 20-minute video, maybe you're editing it down to 20 minutes. 60 frames is alright then, if you really want. But this is the best way to get the smallest video quality, or smallest video file size for that. Frame rate, 30. There's actually some things I add to give it the HDR look of 32-bit full range without the insane file size addition. I added 32-bit color depth. I didn't talk about that for the film look. 32-bit color depth, if you really want that real HDR look, full range is going to get you that. You can use that in vlogs, showcases, or movies. That's going to be the best way to get the best uses of the HDR, the 32-bit color depth. As well, if you really want to, you can use it in commentary. I mean, you know, it really depends. You can even use it in games if that's your thing, but always want to make sure this is at best full before you start rendering it. If you start rendering it and you're like, you've been editing on preview half and you start rendering it, before you reset this to best full, it will only set it to best half. It does render it exactly how the preview looks. We'll take this sample that I have, we're gonna set it to best full just for render sake, have it on 30 frames per second, and if you're going to do a vlog or showcase or whatever, set it to 60, set it to whatever you need, but 30 is basically the minimum for any video, unless you're doing a movie, right? Deinterlace method, just set to none, so it doesn't screw anything up, and we'll get to that in a later video. First, you wanna check your source. Before you actually render your video, you wanna check the source video. Depends on, you know, what you use to record. My video is non-progressive scan, so you want to set your field order up here in project properties to exactly what it said there. It could say upper field first, lower field first, but mine says non-progressive scan. We're going to take that sample, we're going to go to render. The main things you want to be looking at is you will scroll down and you will come to Sony AVC or MVC, and you want to go internet 1920 by 1080 30p, and you want to render it as the FPS that you set your project properties to. The one thing I accidentally didn't do in last night's video, I had this set to 60 frames. It doesn't copy the same as your project property. AVC video format, high definition, that's about it. Obviously you want your field order the same as your project properties. You want your 1 pixel, but your bitrate, I have it set to 16 right here. It doesn't have a preset as 16 million bits per second. That's just 16 megabits per second. As I have 16 megabits per second is that 4K range for a 1080p video. You don't need that, not for a game, especially not a game, or not even a commentary. It's not necessary at all. The way I come to think of it is taking a $1,000 camera, which is already ridiculous in quality, and putting it up like against a $5,000 game. The exponential difference there is like over the thousands, it doesn't much change. I mean, you could 100 to 1,000 is the same as 1,000 to 10,000. 1,000 to 5,000, you're basically getting minor features differences. That's how I like to look at it. I'm just kind of obsessed with that, so it's really not necessary. Set it to 10 megabits per second. That's max you need a gaming video. Hell, I was supposed to set it to 10. I don't know why I didn't. Like I said, I'm insane. I think I have progressive download, always checked, but if I go into here, yes, I just have automatic, so you can just set this to the bit rate, 10 million bits. Your audio, you want to keep at 192. If you are using an XLR mic or even a Blue Snowball, you want to set that at 192 because it does record at a sample rate of 48,000 hertz. So 48,000 kilohertz. Or 48 kilohertz, sorry. And that's about it. What YouTube does is effectively split the file's compression or the data rate of the file in half. I'm not sure if it actually completely splits it in half, but that it allows it to be run on things like a mobile phone or something like that can't exactly, doesn't have the same computing power as a computer. 8 megabits per second, splits into about 4 megabits per, just higher than 4 megabits per second, and that is basically the highest 1080p video can be on YouTube. There is a tiny, there's a sliver of difference from 10 megabits to 15 megabits, and then just the 4K territory, very unnecessary, or 2K, 4K or 2K, whatever you sample one. We're gonna render it, but if you want vlogs, showcases, movies, you'll probably want to render it in H.264, which I will show you exactly right now. We have just rendered the Sony AVC. Now we're going to do sample 2, which is going to be down. You want to scroll down. All right, so, I can't find it. Video for Windows, there we go. AVI.AVI, basically starting out from lossless. You don't actually render it at loss. Vegas does not come with this. And I will show you the link, the link to the download page of the codec will be down in the description. Make sure you have it because it will show up. Actually, it won't show up in here. You'll have to set it up. You'll probably have to go
to I don't know. You'll have to go somewhere in here.
I'd say HD 720 and switch it to X.264. This is the codec that I'm talking about. It's known as X.264 VFW, which is some kind of virtual format or whatever. It is the H.264 MPEG 4 native codec to YouTube, but this is the updated, because I think I heard a while back that they stopped updating H.264 because of H.265 that was coming out. I think it's H.265, but it's because it's supposed to get a whole better depth of color grade, or better quality overall. So somebody actually took the H.264 codec and updated it and called it or made a download for X.264 VFW. So basically that's what I know. Correct me if I'm wrong, like, again, comment down, whatever. That is the codec that will be down in the description. Non-progressive scan, so you want to set it obviously at 30 frames. I want to set it at 1080 HD 1080. But here's the big difference from Sony AVC codec to X.264. You actually have to configure the codecs encoder. So you just want to set it at slow preset. That means that it'll be slower at encoding than medium or something, or faster, but it will give you the best possible quality. You don't want to set it at below slow because it's just basically going to be placebo speed. Slow is the minimum I set it at for the highest quality that I want. Tuning doesn't matter. Profile is high. Level is auto, obviously. Convert to YUV 420. That's all. Zero latency, you want that. Single pass is what you want to set it at. Probably is already set to lossless when you first install it. You want to set it to single pass bitrate based ABR, and then you want to set it to 16,000. Well, actually, no, you don't. If you want to get that best possible quality, but you want it to be the lowest file size, you can set this to 8,000 or 10,000. That'll give you the 1080p highest render quality, that kind of stuff. But it is the native codec to YouTube, so it won't compress it at all. It won't process it, my god. But if you want extreme quality, like I just go insane going into the 4K, 2K, whatever it's called, super high quality stuff, I go up to 16 kilobit or 16,000 kilobits, 16 megabits per second. You really don't need to. If you want that highest quality of 1080p territory, just go 8 or 10 megabits. I'm gonna do 8. What did I have the other one set on? I think it was 10, so we're gonna do this as 10. So they're going to be basically the exact same. I'm not entirely sure if they have the same quality compressions. I don't think they do. Sony AVC is obviously not H.264, but you have it set to VFW and H.264, and then if anything's different from what you see on the screen, make sure you have it set to this. We're gonna go okay. It's now set. You don't have to worry about this slider because obviously it's blacked out because you set it to X.264. I think okay. We're just going to save that for now. Now, that's just the title of the preset. You can change it to whatever you set it to. As we go in again, it's 30 frames, going 10 megabits per sec. Anyways, we'll sample that. Render loop region only. Sample 2. So I have the... So you can see down here, if we go to sample 2, it is rendered at 7 megabytes. Yeah, 7 megabytes. Sample 2 was rendered using H.264 format. Because it's only a 5-second segment, you don't see much of a difference between, because it can only go so low for, you know, even a 5-second segment, right? But there is a difference. You have 5.5 megs here, and then you have 7 megs roughly there. So there is a difference. Sample 2 is using H.264, and like I said, sample 1 is using the MPEG-4, the Sony AVC that comes default with Vegas Pro. So if you don't want to go download X264, you don't have to. But if you want to get the best possible quality for things like showcases or vlogs or commentary, if that's really where you want to be, here is sample 1. This is doing H.264 at, what was it, 10 megabits per second, 30 frames. That is the native codec to YouTube, so YouTube won't process it, and it basically effectively won't compress it really. And here's sample 2. This is 10 megabits per second using the Sony AVC codec, 30 frames per second, and it's not native to YouTube, so YouTube will process it and effectively split the data rate in half from 8 megabits per second or 10 megabits per second to 4 or 5 megabits per second. Anyways, that is basically it, guys. If you do have any questions or concerns, leave them in the comments below. I will get back to you as soon as possible. That concludes today's tutorial. If you do have an idea for a tutorial, leave it in the comments section. Make sure you hit the like button if you enjoyed this tutorial or you found it helpful. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, because I will be bringing more tutorials, and I will be bringing more videos in general. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.